Welcome to The Feed, powered by Loblaw. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. We conceived of The Feed podcast as an opportunity to showcase thought leaders, tastemakers, innovative food and health brands, and yes, a few key Loblaw executives who are making a difference in the grocery and health industries, together helping Canadians live life well. Today's conversation is quintessentially Canadian and far more complex than you might expect. I'm joined by Chad Jakeman, CEO at Jakeman's Maple Products, the steward of a 150-year-old Ontario family business that now funnels more than half of the province's maple syrup. From roadside sap sales to national grocery shelves, this is a story about heritage, scale, risk, and reinvention. We unpack how a generational brand modernizes without losing its soul, how climate volatility reshapes agriculture, and how one well-timed bet during COVID transformed a business overnight. This is maple syrup through a very modern lens. Chad, welcome to The Feed. How are you doing today?
Very well. How are you?
Fantastic. This is so exciting to be here in and amongst the Royal Winter Fair. Such a vibrant environment. You got a great setup here. Thanks for joining me. I'm sure it's a very busy time for you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk about you. You know, for most guests, I ask about how they got in the business, and I think with your name on the bottle, I kind of have a first guess. But where did you come to your passion for what you do for a living?
As you mentioned, I mean, this is my family's business. This is our 150th year in operation. It started by my great-great-great-grandfather, George Jakeman, who came from Oxfordshire, England, and settled in Oxford County, Ontario. They made maple syrup on a small scale and sold it at the roadside, as well as other agricultural, tasks like cash crop, livestock. They had cows.
Now, how did he get into maple syrup?
But they learned from the Aboriginal tribes in Canada.
Oh, nice.
And it was a different time back then. I can imagine. I don't have a whole lot of information from those days, but I do know that as the farm expanded, maple syrup was like the first crop of the year. And so when my grandfather and my dad decided to expand on the maple syrup operation, they really started selling equipment. So we had around 8,000 taps, which was a significant operation at the time. They really wanted to sell equipment to other farmers. They represented Small Brothers evaporators. The first couple of years, they sold a lot of evaporators. After that, it kind of dried up because there's no market for maple syrup.
Right.
And so in order to sell more evaporators, they offered to market their farmers maple syrup. And, now fast forward to today, we don't sell any evaporators. We market maple syrup.
You are a maple syrup business. And I guess in the time tunnel, was it your dad or your grandfather who got it really sparked up and pointed in that direction? And I guess you could have went in a bunch of different directions, but any sense of, did I hear your dad's known as the maple syrup whisperer? Have I got that right?
I've heard that before, yeah. Yeah, same with my uncle. Unfortunately, he passed away this past year, but my dad and my uncle Bruce were integral parts of the maple industry in Ontario.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, let's talk about scope and scale. So, Jakeman's, how big is the enterprise? I think I saw some huge number of ongoing trees or farms that you tap into, so to speak. Pardon the pun. See what I did there? Tap into.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. No, stop me now.
Yeah. No, so you're right. I mean, more than half of all the maple syrup in the province is now funneled through our business.
Wow.
We had a really rocky start during COVID. So most of our market was in souvenir and tourism. And we had some grocery, but we really weren't anywhere. It's funny that we're at this Loblaw event because that was the real turning point for us. March of 2020, we opened up a 24,000 square foot facility just as COVID locked everybody down. So I reached out to Loblaw's, and it was just at the same time as Pearl Milling was being, Aunt Jemima was being rebranded as Pearl Milling, and they're shorting stores.
Right.
And so it kind of was a
sometimes you got to get lucky, right?
Sometimes,
you got to get lucky.
Yeah, there was my fair share of bad luck in those times too. So, but yeah, it transformed our business overnight. Not just with Loblaw, but with other retailers as well. We expanded across Canada. We're now a pretty well-known national brand in Canada. We're we grew from those times, just over $3 million in revenue to, just over 10 this year. So,
well, fantastic. Let's talk about maple syrup in this country. I mean, it's hard to say anything much more Canadian than maple syrup. Now, when I think of maple syrup, I think of Quebec and Ontario. Are those the primary provinces where product is farmed or tapped, or what would you say in your...
Well, I mean, you might not be surprised, but Quebec makes about 70% of the maple syrup in the world, and Ontario makes a small percentage of like around 3%. We have, arguably more maple trees than Quebec, but they're untapped. And that's kind of what our business is all about.
Oh, interesting.
So, 100% of my maple syrup comes from Ontario, and we're driving growth within the industry, giving people, our farmers, a market and a reason to tap trees. So,
well, you've got this great tradition, and I'm always intrigued by vendors or businesses like yourself that they've got this great. It's sometimes said that people buy the story before the product, right? Is this you both have tremendous tradition, and you're also, I'm sure, a very modern manufacturer, right? To be competitive. So talk about how you work to square that circle, the juxtaposition of the traditional methods and the brand behind Jakeman's, but also the modern day of manufacturing and production of your product.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the actual production of maple syrup, it is still pretty low tech in a lot of ways. There's a lot of Mennonites that supply us, and they still use old methods of making maple syrup. There are modern ones as well, where they use reverse osmosis to reduce the...
And what's an old method of making maple syrup for those who haven't been?
Yeah, sure, like collecting buckets, like wood-fired evaporators, stuff like that. And then when you go to the more modern methods of doing it, it's, like I said, reverse osmosis, tubing and lines throughout the woods, and vacuum. So
it still all starts in the same place, tapping into a tree.
Absolutely.
Would your grandfather recognize the process if he saw it today?
My grandfather might, maybe not. My great grandfather.
Interesting. So in that process, so you modernize the process, and maple syrup. Lots of people make maple syrup. So how do you describe that unique flavor, or how you impart unique flavors to it, and how does your maple syrup stand out? How do you think about that?
Well, yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, so maple syrup, it does have differing flavors depending on like the soil or where you've produced the maple syrup and how you've produced the maple syrup, using wood fire, using steam, different ways of doing that. How we make things kind of more uniform and consistent is filtering the maple syrup through a large wine press and adding charcoal. Think of a Brita filter, but for pure maple syrup.
Oh, fantastic. And does it give it, I guess it gives it a distinctive flavor, and then you bottle it away, and how do you make that in a consistent, what's the secret to consistency? The one bottle tastes like the 10,000th bottle.
Well, it's really, all about attention to detail. So all of our maple syrup is bottled at the exact density, so we go on bricks. It's 66.1 bricks for the maple syrup. That gives it the thickness. The charcoal filtration, like I mentioned earlier, it removes sugar sand, off flavors, and it can even change grade. So, like if you have too dark, it'll actually lighten it up a little bit. And basically using spectrometers to make sure that the light transmittance is what you want.
Right. So lots of science that goes into that product, so that all the bottles look the same. That's always intrigued me. Like there's so many bottles that. Sustainability, climate change, just got a big snowfall in Ontario. Right. So, it does seem like we're going to have a winter, which is good. I like it, makes me feel good that we have winter again. But it does feel like the planet and, the environment is changing. It's a very dynamic product, whether it's a cold winter, warm winter. How does that affect the consistency, your process, how you think about it going forward?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, it's something we worry about every year. I mean, when February hits, we're all very concerned, and we're watching the weather daily because, 2021 was one of the worst crops on record. It drained supply. There was almost no syrup left by the time the next crop came around. 2022, luckily, build reserves, and then 2023 again was another disaster. So,
what's a good February? Is it cold? Like, what's the temperature? Has it be not too warm, not too cold? I mean, what is it that you guys, the sweet spot, literally?
Yeah.
See, I keep doing this. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Stop me now.
I'm used to the puns. It's fine. No, we never really know. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean, well, we know what we want. We want just above freezing temperatures and just during the day and below freezing temperatures at night. But, you know, there can be long stretches where it just freezes up and then warms up way too quickly, and then your season's done. So we're all watching to see if the buds come out on the tree. And it's also very regional, too, because, you know, I'm in southwestern Ontario. I could have a great crop, and then if you go, you know, further north, they can have a disaster, you know, and that's happened in the last couple of years. So we have to think about it because, like I said, we bring in maple syrup from all over Ontario, over 200 farms, and they're all in varying regions. So we're watching the Weather Network not only where we are, but we're watching it in St. Joe's Island and Barrie and the Sioux and everything. So, yeah.
Interesting. So, you know, as all entrepreneurs do, you've talked about that kind of pivot point pre-COVID, got a bit lucky. But as you think about recent history in the business, you know, and big risks that you take, I'm trying to, you know, advice for other, you know, small businesses who kind of like, listen, at some point you got to take a risk. It's often said now that not taking risks is the riskiest strategy of all. But that doesn't mean you'd be reckless. But when you think about risks in the business and the big bets, it's maybe spoken differently, a big bet. What comes to mind?
Well, what comes to mind, I think, is when you do one of those big things, you can't half do it. You really got to own it. And like if you bet big, then really work hard to make sure that bet comes through. We've had a few times where it could have gone either way, and luckily we made it through.
Oh, fantastic!
It took a lot of perseverance to make it work.
Well, one other thing I wanted to ask you about, I've heard that there's a strategic supply set aside of maple syrup. Like, how does the overall industry balance such a, I won't call it volatile, but there's a lot of change from year to year, as you've described. Is there like a strategic supply? Is it housed off-site?
Yeah, there is actually. It's in Quebec. It's called the PPAQ, and they, you know, during, like when I mentioned the 2021 crop, we were actually experiencing huge growth in the industry too. So coupled with a bad crop and massive growth, they had about 140 million pounds of maple syrup banked. So they told us all not to worry. We'll probably run through 40 million pounds. Well, August hit, and they had already gone through, I think, 100 million pounds or something. So wow. It was a strange year, but that reserve did its job, and it is key to have.
Let's talk about other products. So I see you've got like pancake mix, and you've got, so some of the products come to mind as very natural extension.
Sure.
You know, cookies, or I don't even know cookies, but talk about your overall product line and how you think about line extensions and you know, what does innovation look like in your business?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a lot of the line extensions kind of started before even I was really running this with my brother. It was, you know, the tourism industry kind of drove a lot of that, like where we got a lot of requests at shows, and hey, can you come up with a cookie? And the cookie, like we go through truckloads of those cookies, so that's a big item for us, but usually it's requests from retailers that kind of drive that, or things that we see in the marketplace that hey, like the cotton candy, we could do I make a maple sugar, and I thought about, you know, why don't we just add some flossine and make a maple cotton candy. And so we bought a little cotton candy machine, and it sold quite a bit, and we ended up having to buy a stadium version of that same machine in order to keep up. So
let's talk a bit more about that product innovation. Let's call it a process or whiteboard. So customer feedback, your vendor, grocer partners' feedback, folks at Loblaws would say, you know, if there's only this, there's a bit of a space there. Does that all come together for you? Do you do that on an annual basis? Or, I mean, I'm sure you have this big period of time where you're just making product, right? Yeah. You're in the production cycle. But then, you know, now you're in the selling cycle, and then at some point turn your minds to what the next year, 2 years looks like. Yeah.
Well, so like the production schedule or cycle for us is ongoing. So it's not just like the factory's always processing. Like it's not. I know a lot of people think it's like one time a year. Well, that's when the product is made. But by the time it gets to us, we do deal in batches. So we make maple syrup. We'll grab 20 or 30 drums. We'll pump them into our process, or basically our evaporator, filter them all, make sure that it's up to our standards, and like I said, like we're sticklers for quality and for we want to make sure that the product
and consistency, right?
Consistent,
quality and consistency.
That's right. Yeah.
Let's talk about consumers for a little bit. Is it expanding? Are people enjoying more maple syrup? I mean, I love it. Is there a seasonality to it? I enjoy it all the time. So for me, in my household, there's not a season to it, and maybe a little bit more in the winter months. But what do you experience?
Well, yeah, I can only speak to the markets I'm in because I'm not everywhere. But like, for example, in Canada, the summer is a huge time for us because, like, if you were to go to France, you'd bring back wine. If you come to Canada, you're bringing back maple syrup. So that's a heavy time for us. And then going into the fall months, back to school, heartier meals, we sell a lot of maple syrup at grocery. And then when we're doing it, like if we're big in Ireland, we do a lot of business in Ireland.
Oh, really?
And
the Irish. So okay, breaking news: the Irish love Canadian maple syrup. That's fantastic.
They do, and so Pancake Tuesday or Shrove Tuesday is huge, and we send down multiple container loads of maple syrup down for Shrove Tuesday.
So we're sitting in this amazing booth here, and we're sitting with the Loblaw Small Supplier Program. Talk about your experience with a program such as that, and you've already mentioned that a big breakthrough moment was calling up Loblaw. Did you just pick up the phone and cold call them? And we seem to be architecting a process where perfect for your size of business, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like this is a huge leg up for somebody. Like I could think of where I was at in 2019 and 2020, and this didn't exist. And it would have been amazing for me to have a contact at Loblaw's to go through the proper channels. How I was able to do this was I knew a store manager near near Ingersoll, and I reached out to him. I asked him for some contacts. He gave me another contact, who gave me another contact, who gave me the category. So it took some doing, but now with the small supplier program, it's much easier to get in touch with people and to find out what Loblaw requires of their vendors.
Right. Can we talk about your brand and your marketing for a bit? Storytelling so important in everyone's brand. And I've been to your website. It's a great website. Are you active on social media? Do you think about using an influencer strategy? I mean, you got shelf presence at Loblaw and Loblaw banners. That's great. So now people can recognize it. But how do you activate your brand, and how do you make that come to life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, like, as a small business, and I'm sure you've talked to many other small businesses in food especially, I mean, we have to watch our pocketbook. We can't be spending the kind of dollars that a major brand can spend, so we got to do it kind of...
No Seth Rogen drinking maple syrup.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't imagine that's entirely viable.
No, and even...
It's a good idea, Seth, if you're listening, support the great Canadian brands.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful. No, and like, you really have to watch where you're spending your dollars, make sure you're getting return on your investment. And so like I like to hire from within, from schools, from students, like especially, they're definitely up on social media. Yep. They're way more tech savvy than I would be, yeah, like that's kind of how we've been doing things. So like usually just really well thought out hiring practices, I guess, is what I could say.
And because you've got something that a lot of people don't have, which is a heritage in the brand, right? And particularly in the times that we're in, I think it's a differentiator. I sometimes think about businesses as table stakes and differentiators. And in your business, I would guess table stakes are consistency, deliveries on time, making a great product, finding the source, developing a network to find the farmers, to get the raw material. What's that differentiator for you? I mean, part of it feels like your brand, right? That anchored in the heritage of the brand. Anything else come to mind?
Well, I mean, that's a big one. I mean, if your product sits on the shelf and doesn't move, that makes it really hard to sell. But we put a little story on the back of the bottle that we think is genuine, and we meant it. And
it resonates with people, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and it really pops off the shelf, too. It's different than what other brands of maple syrup. Yep. I mean, we kind of fell into that too prior to we did a rebrand in 2019. Prior to that, we kind of looked a bit like other brands, and we really wanted to differentiate from that.
Smart.
And that was a key thing that we did.
Key moment in the development of the business, right?
That's absolutely true.
Because I guess as a maple, I've seen the same cans. Like there's a very typical, I guess everybody can buy the same packaging, but that's a big investment and a bit of a risk, right, that you took.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was a lot of pushback from the family on that when we did. Even from me. I mean, it was hard for me to accept. But looking back, if we didn't do that, it would have been a disaster. So
interesting.
It's funny. Like you really get married to a logo or a brand or whatever, but you really got to objectively look at these things and make sure that it makes sense.
What's your advice to people in the business about how to be successful and what have you learned that really makes you would say, listen, if we're sitting down for a cup of coffee or pancakes and syrup, here's the thing that's going to be very important for your business.
I mean, I would say love what you do and really, really appreciate everything you're doing. Like, I think if you have a goal and it looks achievable, and all you have to do is work at it, I think that's a great thing to do and a great thing to work towards. I come to work and I like to come to work, and I think that's important for an entrepreneur and somebody that is in business. I think if you're coming to work and you're not enjoying what you're doing, I think you're in the wrong spot.
Right. So. Last couple of questions for you. One is, as consumers think and articulate, vote with their wallet, whatever, around topics like sustainability, do you feel that's a growing part or component of your brand? Do you like that piece? I mean, it's a very replenishable, sustainable product. Do you think that matters to people these days?
I absolutely think it does. Yeah, like we make a maple sugar. It's much more expensive than cane sugar, but it's the most sustainable sugar you can probably buy. Those maple trees last for 200 years sometimes. And so what more sustainable sugar can you get? Cane sugar. I mean, the affluent waste it creates and the amount of acreage it takes and all the
water to grow,
right?
All these things.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. So, sustainability is very key. And maple syrup, it's a very sustainable product. So,
fantastic. All right, last question for you. What's next for your brand? I mean, you're on a run. It's fantastic. And what as you think about growth, every business kind of turns their mind at some point to, okay, how do we grow this business? What's next for you? You sell online in your store. You sell, trying to 1 + 1 = 3. In other words, you want to make sure that you both are selling direct, but also with great partners like Loblaw. But what's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're working with Loblaw to launch in Western Canada. We're hoping to do that in Q1 of next year. So hopefully that goes through. And obviously, European trade is opening up now with Canada. That's a big one. We're shipping into the UK. We're coming with some new items like, we already have it, but we're trying to do it in larger quantities. We do maple butter. And
has that gotten easier these days? I mean, the rewiring of global trade, is there more interest now than there was 2 years ago, or is it a progression of growth into places like Europe?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's always been a lot of demand for Canadian products. I don't see it much different than it has been in the past, but I think that for Canadian companies, I think it's very important for us to diversify where we sell our products. But it really kind of opened our eyes to, we got to look elsewhere other than just our southern trading partner.
Well, listen, it's so great to meet you in person. Love your product, and where can people go to learn more about your product?
Yeah, you can look us up at jakemansmaplesyrup.com, and we have Instagram, Facebook, and X accounts. So you can look us up there, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Chad, thanks so much for sitting down with me and chatting about the feed, and I wish you much continued success, and congratulations on everything you've accomplished, you and the family and the team.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, be sure and follow us and give us a 5-star review in your favorite podcast app, and tell your friends and colleagues all about us. New episodes of The Feed, powered by Loblaw, will show up regularly on your favorite podcast app and on our YouTube page, where you can watch the full video of each episode at The Feed, powered by Loblaw. I'm Michael LeBlanc, consumer retail growth consultant, keynote speaker, and producer, and host of a series of retail trade podcasts. You can learn even more about me on LinkedIn. Safe travels, everyone.